Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Yes, she was.
I keep looking over at Bob to see if we're going to come crashing down on the live stream or not. Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. This is Thursday, June 19th, episode 205. For the first time in 3 episodes, we are live streaming, which is working again, which is nice. But I appreciate everyone who has downloaded, rated, reviewed, and saying the YouTube version, which has been pretty good amount of people. So glad everyone's tuning in. So Chuck Miketinac on tap. Chuck, how are you?
I'm doing great, Matt. How are you doing?
That was so mechanical.
I know.
I'm doing great.
I've run out of things to say. We've done so many of these.
I guess. 205 times I've asked you how you are, and now it's, I'm doing great, Matt. Anyway. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, both News 4, Fox SA. Download, rate, review the podcast version wherever you get your podcasts. Helps us out a lot. As we have been doing for the past 3 weeks, we will continue to go over the latest trade and speculation rumors surrounding the San Antonio Spurs, because with every passing second, there is a new thing going on. So we're just 6 days away from the NBA draft, and hopefully within the next 6 days or in 6 days' time, we get a little bit more clarity about the intentions of the number 2 pick. Going to go over that. Plus, there's been a recent connection to an NBA Finals MVP who resides in the Northeast and the Spurs. That name has a lot of people a little interested. Plus, hear from Spurs legend Bruce Bowen on why he thinks Dylan Harper will work out wonderfully for the Spurs. And then Dejounte Murray comments on Coach Pop. The former Spurs guard and current Atlanta Hawks guard told an amazing story about Coach Greg Popovich this week on the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark. So we'll talk about that and what it says about Pop and his entire attitude as he changed the culture of the San Antonio Spurs into what it is today. So we'll start with the Spurs draft rumors, for lack of a better term, though. Today it was Brett Siegel at Clutch Sports who put out an article basically talking about the 76ers and what they're doing in the draft. They have the number 3 pick, and obviously they're probably not going to get Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper's odds to go number 2 to the Spurs right now are minus 2,500, so it's pretty good. I think that's like a 99% implied odds. Obviously, Cooper Flagg is going to go number 1, so they're between Ace Bailey and a VJ Edgecombe. Well, this week, I think it came out yesterday, that Ace Bailey canceled his interview and meet and greet with and workout with the 76ers, which is kind of odd for a prospect to do. So they're more going towards VJ Edgecombe now, but what they really want is Dylan Harper. The only way you're going to do that is to trade up with the Spurs, because they're the ones that are in the position to get it. So Siegel wrote in his article today, quote, multiple future first-round picks have been offered in exchange for the rights to take Harper, sources said. However, the Spurs haven't given any indication, that they're seriously considering any offers to move out of this spot in the draft. Are you surprised at this point in the process of everything we've heard that they are surprised, that they are hesitant or reluctant to move out of number 2, even for multiple firsts?
I mean, we're assuming all this is 100% fact.
Obviously,
right?
we're going to live under the assumption that this is true. There's probably a good possibility that it's not true.
I would be shocked if there was a pick swap between 2 and 3 and then multiple picks tagged onto this trade, that the Spurs wouldn't make a move like that. So yeah, I would be shocked if the premise is true that they've already been offered multiple picks for a pick swap between 2 and 3.
I mean, if you're the 76ers and you're offering 2 future firsts, because it says multiple, so let's just assume 2, plus a pick swap between 2 and 3, you either really, really value Dylan Harper.
Yes, that would be would be fact.
And if you're the Spurs, you also value Dylan Harper to the extent in which you're not even really considering that. They've given no indication, according to this article, that they are even considering trading down for Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe or whoever they would like at number 3. I think that also speaks to the level of the separation between 1, 2, and then everybody else. Because since the draft lottery, we've heard, and I think before the draft lottery, it was a little up in the air, but since the draft lottery, all we've heard is it's Cooper Flagg, then like 20 feet of trash, and then like Dylan Harper, and then like 100 feet of trash, and then Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, and everyone else. I think now that we're getting closer to the draft, we're hearing more and more that actually might be the truth.
Yeah, it all comes down to what do these GMs, what do these scouting departments think of these players, right? We've gone the last 2 years where these were the greatest draft classes ever, and at 23 we're going to get this guy, and all. And how does it play out? Like last year, the Spurs didn't even think enough of the draft that they were hanging around at 8.
Yeah.
So, yes, if they really value number 2, then it's probably pretty safe to say it's going to take a massive haul of not only a pick swap very high up, but also maybe another legit player in there too. Because again, the best part about a rookie guy is he's on a rookie contract.
Yeah, 100%.
You can do a lot of damage if you have a really kick-ass rookie that's on your contract or that's on your roster and playing.
And to your point about last year's draft compared to this year's draft, I mean, when they traded out Rob Dillingham, Kenny Dillingham's my coach, forks up. Rob Dillingham, when they traded him to the Timberwolves and they got a 2031 first-round pick, everyone was like, "What the hell? Why are we trading picks away? You're trading the 8th pick in the draft." Well, this year they're hesitant to trade 14. Like that tells you exactly how deep at least the Spurs think that this draft is.
That's assuming again that they are hesitant to trade 14.
Assuming that some of the leaks have been correct, that they haven't traded it yet, and they very well still could on draft night or even before that. But it seems like they're more hesitant to give up picks or positioning in this draft than they have been in the past because of the depth of the draft. At least that's what it seems so far. I would, if I was a Spurs fan, I would also take this report, and like I said, it could not be true. It could be true. It could not be. We have no idea. But I would look at this as a real positive sign that it adds to the narrative of we're done picking in the lottery. I think when we heard that from Peter J. Holt the other day, we've seen all the moves that they're making, the trading for De'Aaron Fox, the wanting to hold on to younger guys to see them develop something like the Thunder are probably going to be crowned tonight. I think it's adding to the narrative that we're done picking in the lottery. We want to compete every year now. We're ready to compete for the next 10 to 15 years. And I think that's a very positive sign that Spurs fans should be taking from almost all of these reports that we're seeing.
I agree. I'm 100% with you. And I think it is time, right? Enough of this ping pong ball stuff and getting excited about lotteries and all that other stuff. The ping pong balls have been really good to them. I think we can agree with that. But what's fascinating to me about all this, Matt, is that once again, because of the leverage that they have created for themselves on multiple fronts, which we've discussed many, many times here, is the fact that they literally can sit back and watch all these other GMs and scouting departments freak out or say, we got to do this. Here's our assets. We think the draft is this. We got to move up. We got to pull back. They can sit back and accommodate anybody who's going to push the panic button.
Yep.
And so there's still a lot of time between now and draft night. And I, just like everybody else, am super fascinated to see how it plays out because, again, it only takes one team to freak out and make them a deal that
you can't refuse.
There's no way you could possibly refuse.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this earlier. I saw a couple of tweets from Tom Petrini, and he was just talking about the KD trade and how the Suns have absolutely no leverage in any situation with any team. And I was just sitting there thinking about it, like, if it's Jaylen Brown or if it's Jalen Jackson or if it's John Morant or Giannis or KD, like the Spurs hold all the cards. They
100%.
They hold every card. You have all the picks in the world, including picks that aren't yours that are going to be attached to bad teams like the Atlanta Hawks team in 2027 could be absolute garbage. We have no idea. In 2 years, the Spurs could have a first pick in the draft or a top 3 pick that's not even theirs because of the Atlanta Hawks pick. So you have that. You have the young assets, the Devin Vassell's, the KJ's, the Harrison Barnes is a movable contract. So you have things that people want, the Jeremy Sohans of the world. And then you have young, budding superstars that players want to play with. You have everything that players want, and you have everything that other teams want. They're the envy of every GM's eye and every player's eye because of Wemby and because of what Brian Wright has done and because of De'Aaron Fox and all of those things.
And the cap space.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane that they've put themselves in such a good position to where literally any player becomes disgruntled. They're like, the Spurs would be good for him.
Well, they have paid a price, right?
Yeah, obviously, it's been trash for the last 5 years.
Right. But yes, because they have had these growing pains, it's now time to reap the rewards of that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just, I was just thinking about that. Like, wow, they've put themselves in the most enviable of positions. Now, what do you do with it?
Yeah, and you can game plan all this stuff out. If we keep the picks, what does it look like? Put it in the supercomputer, hit the button, you know? What happens if we take this pick and that pick and the pick from 20 years from now and get this guy? Put it in. What does it look like, right? I mean, so you're going to take the best possible scenario at the end of this, or scenarios, because, again, they've given themselves a lot of options.
Absolutely. As far as the Spurs draft is concerned, all the talk regarding the Spurs is about Dylan Harper, number 2. The overwhelming possibility, the overwhelming, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but anyway, the likeliest scenario is that they stick at 2 and draft Dylan Harper. That's probably, I would bet 9 times out of 10, they stick at 2 and draft Dylan Harper, barring some act of God or some deal that you just can't say no to. So how does he fit has been a question since the draft, because you already have a point guard. You already have a 2 with Stephon Castle. You already have a 3 with Devin Vassell. Where does he go? Well, Bruce Bowen, who is a very good friend with Dylan Harper's father, Ron Harper, who played with the Bulls in the 90s and all that, longtime NBA guy, thinks that Dylan Harper would fit in spectacularly in San Antonio, mainly because of the culture that Coach Pop and everyone else has built. So this is Bruce Bowen on with the Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Do you think that they should take Dylan Harper?
Oh, man. Woo. No question.
Oh, yeah.
Man, and I say it for this. Dylan Daddy and I, we real close. And one of the things that Ron talks about is the culture of San Antonio for my son being a professional basketball player. He's going to learn things about being professional. And there's always a point in life when you see your son playing at the highest level that you just realize that you can't do nothing for him. And you want him in an environment where things can help him continuously improve, not just as a basketball player, but as an individual as well. We saw that with Dale Curry when Steph went to Golden State. Dale wasn't in the gym with him with all them shots doing that anymore. Dale was kicking balls to him because he couldn't reach it. Now, here you go. So when you have these types of scenarios, I think it only helps. And his skill, I look at it like this. De'Aaron Fox, you have Castle, you have Wemby. There's not going to be pressure for him. He's going to have a lot of one-on-one opportunities where he can just play the game. It's not a lot of places you can do that. And people tend to learn that later in life when they want to be the man, and then they become the man, and then they realize, oh, wow, it's 2 people on me all the time. I no longer have the freedom to do those other things. So I'm all for, Dylan being a Spur because of what it can do for the club, but also what it can do for him.
Do you buy that, Chuck?
Yes, 100%. I think, if you're a young player, you want to come into a place that provides you many, many things. Well, at least most young players. And, what does that look like exactly? I'm not sure, but I mean, there are worse places that Dylan Harper could end up if you're a young guy trying to get minutes in the league.
Well, and you look at the culture that the Spurs have built, and the word culture gets thrown around so much now when it shouldn't. But you look at what they have built and the infrastructure that the team has. It's very consistent with RC and with Brian and with Peter at the top, and it's just very in Pop, obviously. It's very player friendly, and so you just look at a guy like Dejounte Murray, who came in and had such a troubled past, and came in and was developed into an all-star and was his best self on and off the floor. you look at those kinds of success stories and you're like, oh yeah, I want my son to play there. So I can understand why Ron Harper, of all people, would be like, I would love for my son to go there. He's going to become the best man he can be, because he was a freshman in college this year.
Well, yeah.
I mean, he's a kid.
Right. And I mean, I think some of that too is like where it's been in the past with Pop is he's been tough on a lot of these guys. And I think you probably have to be in some regards, because you are coaching a lot of teenagers nowadays. And, you know, there's a bridge between high school and being a high school kid and becoming a man in not only in a basketball sense, but in real life, right? In your everyday life. So, I mean, you talked about Dejounte. He's brought that up quite a few times. I mean, they tried to break him mentally on some things. And so, but that toughness and what you have to persevere through does make you stronger in the end. So if you're a dad like Ron Harper and you want your son to, you know, obviously elevate and become an NBA player, and with all the glitz and the glam as there is at playing big-time college basketball, it's obviously on another level at the NBA level. And I would think as a dad, I'd rather have my guy go to a team like the Spurs as opposed to somebody that maybe doesn't care what they're doing off the court as a 19-year-old.
One thing before we get to some comments on the YouTube stream and on Facebook and whatnot, do you think that the culture, it all changes now with Pop not there? I mean, he's there, but not there, you know, in the position that he had. He's not, you know, on the everyday grind like he used to be. He's working on himself and getting healthy, which is what he needs to be doing. Do you think that it changes with Mitch now at the helm, the culture that's been building for the past 30 years?
No, I think it's going to be different, but I mean, I think it's, you know, the end game is the same, right? You're trying to become a better basketball team. You're trying to make better individuals as players and as men. But it's definitely going to be different, but there are going to be some axioms that I think will remain the same as long as Pop is in the building. But I think Mitch is his own man, and he'll do things differently than Pop does or did. So, yeah. But
there is a reason that they wanted Mitch to be the heir apparent, right? I mean, it's like you don't. It's like with Shire and replacing Mike Krzyzewski. It's like they knew things were going to be a little different in the day-to-day operations, but the general overview, the general umbrella of being a Spur is exactly the same as it was before. The standard is still the same.
So. Yes, agreed.
All right, Bob.
Lots of comments in the chat today, but what I think everyone wants to know is tell us more about your pink hat.
My pink hat. All right. Well, I used to work at a place called Steamworks Brewing Company, or Brew Pub, in Durango, Colorado.
Why would you ever leave a job like that?
Yeah.
Well, I got out of college. And so...
what's that got to do with anything? Then run the place with your degree.
You're not wrong. Yeah, with my communications and journalism degree. Last year on vacation in October, and even though I hadn't worked there for like 5 years, so many of the people that were still there still worked there. And so they were like, we were there at a Fort Lewis football game. And they were serving beer, and I was like, "Hey guys!" And they were all like, "Matt, what the hell are you doing here?" And so they gave me a hat. But anyway, that's my pink hat story.
Tom Guerrero's in the house.
Shout out Tom Guerrero.
First of all, he's chatty today.
Is he?
He's chatty.
He wants answers, which we provide not many.
First of all, he's been saving them up on the live streams that we haven't had.
First of all, he said Durant is toxic. Spurs don't need this. Spurs need a rim protector with post-up abilities. Then he went on to say...
Not wrong.
What did he go on to say? Then he said, bring in Harper, trade Devin. Devin has had his chance and hasn't done anything to improve. Robert Smith, who is a regular, he's in the house right now.
Shout out Robert Smith.
And he says Castle will make a huge leap next year and would be an all-star. He also said Dylan Harper will make impact in his rookie year, but he'll be an all-star by his third.
All those things are plausible.
Yes, they are.
The KD thing is starting to fizzle out, so we're not going to spend too much time on KD because he's taken up the majority of our last 2 or 3 podcasts. And frankly, I
thank you, KD, for providing content.
Honestly. They do need a rim protector, and they need guys that can shoot the rock. They need size and shooting. That's all they need. That's all they really need. Do they need another superstar? I mean, they don't need one. They could use one. But you really need size and shooting. And I think if they get out of this offseason with just size and shooting and no other superstar besides like Dylan Harper, who's a budding one, I think it'd be a successful offseason for him. So as for the Steph Castle being an all-star and Dylan Harper being an all-star, that's the hope. That's what they're banking on.
Yes. You got to like their trajectory, right?
Oh,
At least to
course.
this point for both fellas. And as we project out, then they appear to be tracking nicely.
Yeah, you draft Dylan Harper, and then your main hope is that in 3 years you have 4 all-stars on this team with Steph, Dylan, De'Aaron Fox, and Wemby. Like, that's your hope, right? You have to – that's why they're so hesitant to give up number 2.
And if you had 4 all-stars, you're probably winning a lot of ball games.
Doing pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Let me give you one more comment from Spurs fan who's had a lot to say in the comments today. He says, I don't think the Spurs want a rookie contract on the books from pick 14. Pick 14 is more valuable in a trade scenario. Do you guys
Depends
agree
on
with
who
that?
they're going to get at 14. I think 14 is going to be one of those things. I personally believe that they're going to trade up because I think they want one of the guys that's going to go in the top 10, either a Con Knipple or a Malawach. But 14 is only valuable if the team that you're trading 14 to values a player at 14, right? Like,
Yes.
you if they don't trade up and they do end up picking at 14, or if they're coming close to picking at 14, I could see an on-the-clock trade. The Spurs have traded 14 to X team for XYZ because the team that traded up had a player in mind that they wanted.
Yeah, and if let's say you've gone into the draft and you've got 10 guys you really feel like are really grade A players in this draft, and I'm totally using that as a hypothetical, and one of those 10 guys just happens to be available at 14, well then obviously you feel like you've got a gift at that point.
Right.
So yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what actually ends up happening with that pick, because ultimately if the Spurs only value 10 guys in this draft and they're all gone, then you can suspect that 14th pick will be gone as well.
Yeah, one thing that I think everyone should keep in mind as Spurs fans is the trajectory of this team changed last month in May when they got the number 2 pick. They were not expecting to get the number 2 pick. They were very much expecting to be at number 8, and Don has said it multiple times that they were very much expecting to be at number 8, pick at number 8, and probably 14, and have those 2 guys on their roster. Getting up to 2 and getting a player of Dylan Harper's quality as opposed to having a player like Con Knipple's quality, while both very good players, very different ceilings for those 2.
I don't know, dude. I mean,
I think that
you look and see what Knipple did at the combine with shuttle times and all that.
I'm not
like
saying him specifically,
Right,
but I mean,
okay.
you know what I mean.
Yes, I got you.
The quality
Yes.
of player from
Yeah.
8 to 2 is much different.
Yeah.
So I think that their plan, and this is just my hypothetical here, my thought, my hypothesis, is that their plan completely just tear it up, throw it out the window, because it completely changed when the ping pong balls fell their way.
Well, I think again, it's just giving them more and many more options now, because again, they can sit back and see what somebody else is going to do or offer them. And, you had that number 2 pick. That's another little thing that you have as an asset that somebody else may value more than you end up valuing it because of what you can get in return.
One other thing that was rumored this week was excuse me, I had to burp. The Spurs have been linked to another NBA superstar. Superstar, I'm going to put that lightly. NBA Finals MVP from last year, Jaylen Brown, was connected to the Spurs this week from a lot of Boston media. The Celtics are obviously a team that is in flux, I would just say, especially with their cap room, with Derek White and Kristaps and Jalen and Jason Tatum all making a significant amount of money. They're going to have to let a lot of guys go, and they're going to have to reshuffle that team. So how are they going to do that? Well, Jaylen Brown is a 28-year-old guy who just signed a 5-year, $285 million contract. He will be in the second year of that contract, which I don't believe fits the timeline of the Spurs, but he's been rumored that the Spurs really like him. He's a really good defender. He's a really good shooter from the outside, 2 things that they really need. Would you like to see Jaylen Brown on the Spurs?
Yes, but not at that price, right?
It's going to be a significant price.
So that's the end game in all this. But again, it's one of those things you might have to consider based on what you would have to give up in order to get him. Because you got to obviously, everything about Jaylen Brown's age, his size, his ability to play basketball. I mean, there's a reason why this man is making as much money as he is. But, there's just a lot of things for the Spurs to have to consider. And again, this isn't just Boston. This is every team in the league is going to go to the Spurs first because of what they possess.
Yeah, exactly.
So everybody that might be on the market or could be moved is going to be tied to San Antonio, at least in the embryonic stages of any talks that may go on. The first phone call that's being made around the league is to San Antonio.
Yeah. Brian Wright's on speed dial for a lot of
Yes.
people. Let me ask you this. So there's been a lot of rumors around the Spurs and connecting them to superstars this offseason. I want you to rank these 4 in terms of who you would like, the deal that you would like to see the Spurs make. Okay? Kevin Durant, Giannis, Jaren Jackson Jr., Jaylen Brown.
Okay.
1 is I want them to acquire this guy the most. You got the list. You got the list in front of you.
Okay.
So, who would you like for them to acquire the most? Who would you like for them to acquire the least? 1, 2, 3, 4. Dang. And you have to take into account the price of them in terms of draft compensation, what they're going to cost in terms of money, how they fit the timeline.
So I would assume that Jaren Jackson makes the least.
I believe that is true.
Okay, so I'll go with him.
He's going to cost you probably the most draft compensation.
Probably so, but
he fits though.
Right. I mean, I would take all these guys for starters, right? And I would take all these guys if you could find a way, each individually. Obviously, you're not going to get them all based on what the Spurs roster looks like.
Now, that would be a hell of a story.
But I would – my premise is this, though, and the caveat is I would be really reluctant to trade future assets. So if I could get one of these guys with having to trade maybe 14, but that's it, and then get to keep everything else.
Well, then KD would be your number 1. Because that's the only guy on that list you're only trading 14 for.
Well, if it was KD, though, I think it would be different. I don't know that I'd put 14 in the mix because I don't think you would have to at this point.
Okay.
Right? I mean, again, that's me spitballing without knowing truly what cards everybody's holding in their hands.
Giannis, Jaylen Brown, and Jaren Jackson.
I would love Giannis
would
here.
be 4 or 5 number 1s.
Imagine the star power of this franchise, how much it would go up if you had Giannis here.
True. They'd get that.
Plus, he can play.
They'd get that arena started built tomorrow.
It would,
they put
it would be a
stakes
step
in the
right
ground.
direction, right? Some have say they've already have. So
all right. You got Jaren Jackson at 1.
Yeah, I'll go Giannis 2, Jaylen Brown 3, and KD 4, just for the sake of making things quick here, because I could supercomputer this in my head all day long.
I would
go tough choices here, my friend.
I mean, that's why I send the rundowns out.
Yeah, that's why I ignore them until the last second.
That's why he had no idea I was going to ask him this. I would go Jaren Jackson 1, KD 2, Jaylen Brown 3, Giannis 4.
Okay.
I don't want Giannis on the team.
Wow,
Really?
you put all the stuff you're going to talk about on these rundowns.
That's weird, right? All right, let's go to Dejounte Murray.
Hey, wouldn't Jaren Jackson be the best fit, though?
Yeah, I think he would be. Jaren Jackson is a center that can stay inside and can shoot as well. But
I think Jaylen Brown could too. I mean, I don't think
Jaylen Brown would be a really good fit.
He's not a ball hog.
Well, he'd be a good fit, but it would depend on who you got rid of because you need minutes on the wing to open up for him, obviously. So, and if you're drafting Dylan Harper, I think that you would have to trade Steph or Dylan Harper for Jaylen Brown. So we'll see what happens. Let's talk about Dejounte Murray here for a second.
Make it so. I'd take any one of them guys on the team, honestly. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right. Anyway,
You got me thinking.
former Spurs players will tend to go on interviews or on podcasts and do interviews and all that stuff every now and again. Every time they do, you get asked about Coach Pop. And every time that happens, you hear a story like what we're about to hear from Dejounte Murray, which is so on brand for what we hear about Coach Pop on a day-to-day basis. So Dejounte Murray was on the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark and the co-host that I don't know his name. But anyway, this was this week on the Pivot podcast. Javier, I think you need to restart that clip there. It's 45 seconds in. There we go. All right, this is Dejounte Murray on the Pivot podcast.
Getting to be around him, a leader that's teaching me how to be a man, how to be a professional, how to go about your work, how do you treat people. You are who you only treat people, how you treat people.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You treat people like an so you're an asshole.
Yep.
You treat people good, I mean, you're a good person. You know what I'm saying? So for me, he was like a father figure. It's so many stories. If he was able to come sit here and talk, he'd tell you he's never had a player come in his office that cried on his shoulder from how many murders he had to deal with back home in Seattle, how many funerals I had to pay for. It was so crazy. A lot of my people don't even know this, from family, friends, in the penitentiary. Pop didn't want me to go to Seattle. When I first got drafted, I wouldn't go to Seattle. And that was a man that cared about me. That was a man that wanted me to reach my full potential in life first, but then as a basketball player. He's so real, he tried to move my mom to San Antonio with his own money after she got shot. My mom was shot in the leg my rookie year. He called her himself without me knowing until after the fact. We want to move you here. No, not with his money, with my money. That sound like a dude that cared about me and loved me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You covered this team for a really long time, Chuck. You hear stories like that. What do you think?
Well, I mean, a lot comes to my mind, right? I mean, obviously, first of all, I had no idea that Dejounte's growing up was that. How would you say it? Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, right? I mean, that violent, that was a constant threat, you know. And then again, I mean, he's been making the rounds this summer too, and we saw him, of course, when Pop made his presence felt the other day.
And it was Mitch's introductory.
Right, correct. So, but it's interesting to hear like both sides of the story, right? You hear the human side, the humanitarian, and then Dejounte was talking about on All That Smoke last month. He wanted out of here. He called his agent. He hated the way he was being treated. So, I find it fascinating, and whenever you hear these stories, is that Greg Popovich has been able to somehow walk a line where he can be this super hard ass on players, but yet at the end of the day, his former players would say those positive things about him. I mean, it's really remarkable. I'd like to know how he does that.
I think it's just never ceases to amaze me when I hear stories like that, because you're never going to hear them from Pop. Like, he's never going to go out and be like, I called Dejounte's mom to try and move her here with my own money. Like, he's never going to toot his own horn like that, so he needs other people to do it for him. And so Dejounte Murray, who is still very much in the league and is recovering from an injury and is on another team and was traded away from the Spurs and arguably one of the biggest trades in Spurs history to help them set up this dynastic run that they're looking at. He still has so much affection for Coach Pop and for the organization that not only does he choose to go on to podcasts like he just went on and express his admiration and love for Coach Pop, but also to come back, one, to see Coach Pop pass the torch, but two, to give his support to Coach Mitch Johnson, who's known him for the last 10 years. And that's one of the reasons that he came back. Mitch was significant in his life as well.
Mitch bailed him out of jail or came and got him when he was in juvenile detention or something. I don't know the whole story, but I mean, obviously, if you have another man do that for you, I would imagine that, Mitch Johnson's going to be in Dejounte's life probably forever. And wonder, it tells you what kind of a guy Mitch Johnson is too.
You just don't see that very often. And Don and I have had this conversation a lot, which is like, you don't see players on another team still active who were just traded away from your franchise come back to welcome the new head coach of that franchise.
Right. True.
Or to say goodbye to, or, end of an era, kind of usher off the Popovich era. You don't see guys come back for that very often. And every time when you're talking about the Spurs, it's Tony, Timmy, and Manu, and it's Bruce Bowen, and it's Sean Elliott, who's still on the broadcast, and everybody that has touched this franchise or been part of it for the past 25 years. I know there's a bar, Brew Pub, on 1604 and 281 on Redland Road. They have a whole Patty Mills section. Like, there's just guys that love being here, love being coached hard by Coach Pop, and then Pop does things like this, and you wonder, it reaffirms what you think you already knew about Coach Pop and about the organization.
Yeah, I think, again, what impresses me or what amazes me the most is that he somehow can be this guy that during a practice setting or while you're playing for him, that he can just be just completely dog you and get on you and ride you and bench you and, put you off in the corner and make you stew for days and weeks. And then there is that other side that you're right, we don't get to see. And that ultimately it's the tough love, and that obviously these guys must feel something if they're, they're compelled to express themselves in such a way. It's pretty cool.
There was a story the other day, and this is the last thing before we get out of here. There was a story the other day that Richard Jefferson told, and I implore everybody to go check it out because it was hilarious. He was telling a story about how the guys on the floor were playing like crap, and Pop calls a timeout. Matt Bonner was about to enter the game, so he was sitting up there. So he takes his spot on the bench alongside the 4 guys that were playing like crap. And so Pop just starts dog cussing everybody. He's like, "You suck, you suck, you suck." And then he gets to Matt Bonner, who just enters the floor, and he's like, "And you're an effing wussy." And he didn't say wussy. And Matt Bonner's sitting there like, "What the hell did I do?" And so Richard Jefferson was like, "I couldn't stop laughing, but I couldn't laugh because Pop was staring at me. So I just sat there." But it's so funny to hear stories like that. And then on the other side of it, hear stories like what Dejounte Murray said. It's like the true dichotomy of being that father figure head coach and also, or that demanding head coach and that father figure off the court.
Yeah, I would imagine that's a tough sled to be on, right? Because you want to be the coach and you want to do demanding things and ask players to do things that they're not comfortable doing in terms of stretching them and pushing them to where they need to go. But then the other side of it is, I mean, you're one of a certain amount of teams all going in the same direction, and you're all professionals. So, I mean, obviously, this isn't the only story that you'll ever hear. I mean, Steven Jackson, who I never thought would say anything good about Pop, has said nothing but good things about him for the most part over the last couple of months too. So, maybe, the seeds that get planted back a year ago, a day ago, 20 years ago, eventually they take root and you kind of see what the guy's trying to do.
Is it like when your kids like cuss you out and they're like 16, 15 and then come back and like, "All right, I'm sorry, you were right." So it's like one of those things.
I don't know. I thankfully never had a kid cuss me out.
Oh.
Did you do that to your mama?
I don't want
to Matthew.
I don't want to talk about it. No, I mean, no, I didn't do that.
That's why you ended up working in a brewery.
Which isn't a bad thing.
That's some damn good beer.
I know.
Steamworks Brewing Company. You're ever in Durango, Colorado? Check it out. Damn good beer. All right. Anything interesting going on this weekend, Chuck? You're not going to the World Series?
No. I think I'm gonna stay away from Omaha this time. But no, nothing yet. I mean, gonna hang out. My wife and I are gonna go take a little time away. I'm not really sure where yet, and then maybe the early part of next week, maybe head to the Midwest. Maybe go to a Royals game, dude.
Hey, there you go.
That's kind of on my short list of things, the possibilities I could do a drive up and
Might
drive
be your
back
last time
real
at
quick.
Kaufman, so who knows?
They get a new place?
Then maybe soon. Who knows? I don't know how long until you get there.
I don't know. That's one of those places for selfish reasons, I hope stays the same. I
Love
like
Kaufman.
it. I love the setup. Fan base is cool. Good ballpark. Team's pretty interesting to watch.
Love Kaufman.
Best of everything.
And they just beat the Rangers 4-1. So that game's over
Today?
now. Yeah.
Oh, boo.
Anyway, remember to download, rate, review the podcast, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We'll be back on Monday when it is officially draft week. We'll see you then.